I learned Spanish in high school, and it absolutely changed my life. It's allowed me to meet new people, travel the world, fall in love with a beautiful Mexican girl, and even move to Mexico. But I'm of the 1% of people who this happens to. If you took Spanish in school and forgot absolutely everything you learned, you're not alone, because it seems like 99% of people who took Spanish in school can only remember how to say "Donde está el baño y una cerveza por favor," which I suppose is practically fluent. But now that you're out of school, here's what you need to do if you want to learn Spanish by yourself. The first thing you need to do is to join a Spanish program that has a community. The community aspect is huge. Now, this can be online or in person, but I will say that online is probably going to be more convenient for you. So when I first started learning Spanish, I didn't necessarily have access to a community, and I really wish I did. While I had peers in my Spanish learning classes, most students were not super interested in actually learning Spanish. Now, because I had no actual community, my friend Luis was my community. I was always bugging the heck out of Luis, asking him all of my Spanish questions, but I really wish that I had access to a Spanish learning community earlier in my Spanish learning journey. The thing is that when you join a Spanish learning community, you are 1, more likely to learn faster, and 2, more likely to be successful when it comes to learning. If I had had access to a Spanish learning community at the start of my journey, I think I probably would have been a bit more motivated and I would have just had a lot more fun. It's cool when you meet like-minded people and you realize, oh, I'm not the only one who is really in love with this language. One of my Spanish students, Jeff, has only been learning for 3 months, but he is already having full-blown conversations in Spanish. In fact, before I started recording this video, him and I literally just had a 2-hour conversation completely in Spanish. And we did the week before, and we did the week before. A big reason is because 1, he's speaking a lot as much as he can, but 2, he's part of a Spanish learning community. Cough, cough, it's mine. Link in the description. Go check it out. The biggest mistake that most Spanish learners make is that they don't speak enough. If you're struggling with speaking in Spanish, ask yourself, how often am I actually speaking Spanish? Remember that at the end of the day, the reason we learn Spanish is because we want to be able to have conversations with people and connect with them on a deeper level. If you're not speaking, then of course you're not going to be able to have conversations with people because you're never using those speaking muscles. So when I started making videos in Spanish, it was 2020, which is now 4 years ago, which I actually cannot believe. And I look back at those videos of me speaking in Spanish with random people online, and I cringe at my Spanish. I cringe at my accent.
¿Cuántos años tienes?
20.
¿20 años?
Sí, ya ves mi bárbaro.
Tengo yo?
19, ya me dijiste, ¿no?
Now, here I am, 4 years later, and the biggest number one reason that my Spanish has gotten much, much better is because I speak Spanish every single day. When I started making those videos, I was speaking often, but I wasn't speaking every single day like I have for the past 4 years. Also, I have a Spanish-speaking girlfriend and I live in Mexico now, so I guess that definitely helps. Listening is very, very important. And honestly, it's a very easy and passive way to learn the language. But listening is going to help you easier understand the sounds of the language and learn lots of new vocabulary. My student Jeff listens to audio in Spanish all the time, whether that's music, movies, series, or of course, my podcast, link in the description. So if you're struggling to understand native speakers, for example, try to combine passive listening practice, for example, listening to music on your commute, with active speaking practice. When you put those two together, you have a really powerful combination. Also, another shameless self-promotion, I have a playlist of more than 48 hours of music completely in Spanish. Once again, link in the description. Another great way to learn Spanish is by watching things. This is a really fun and easy way to learn the language, and I always tell students, you want to try and do things that you already love in Spanish. So for many of us, it's watching YouTube videos or watching Netflix. Now, do this, but just do it in Spanish. It's kind of funny because I remember watching Narcos Mexico and afterwards feeling like my Spanish had just 10x'd. And I felt like I kind of had a funny new accent and I was learning a lot of new vocabulary, especially slang. Personally, I recommend always using subtitles in Spanish. Now, a lot of people will say that it's best to watch without subtitles, but even now that I've been learning Spanish for 10 years now and have gotten to a very advanced level, I always watch things with subtitles in Spanish because I have the mindset of I am going to be learning Spanish for life, and you can always learn new vocabulary. And if you really can't understand something, even with subtitles in Spanish, no worries. Watch the movie or show using subtitles in English, then go back and put the subtitles in Spanish. So at least you know what's going on, and then you can say, oh, okay, that's where they were talking about this. Oh, okay, that word means this. Another great thing you can do for your Spanish is reading. The biggest thing here is just to try and do things you normally do in everyday life that you actually enjoy and do them in Spanish. So if you like reading, try reading in Spanish. If you like watching stuff, try watching stuff in Spanish. If you like speaking with a bunch of people, go out and try to speak to a bunch of people in Spanish. Travel is not a requisite to learn Spanish. In fact, 95% of all the Spanish I have learned has been in the United States and not in Mexico or Spain or wherever. And I wanted to add this one in here because I know that not all of us can travel. We're busy or maybe money's a little tight. But the thing is, if you are able to travel to a Spanish-speaking country, I highly recommend it because while it will help you with your Spanish, the best and most helpful thing about it is that it will be a giant, huge, very important motivator. Not to mention, it's probably going to humble the heck out of you because I remember I had been learning Spanish for about 4 years and I went to Mexico for the first time with my friend Luis, and I got there and people were saying a bunch of crazy things in Spanish and I had no idea what was going on. But I went on that trip thinking, oh, I'm the man, my Spanish is amazing, it's perfect. So then I had a very humble awakening on that trip. And instead of getting discouraged by that, I said, oh, that's a great motivator. I can get better. Not to mention, traveling to a Spanish-speaking country is awesome because you meet new Spanish-speaking friends. So just because you go to Spain for 3 months does not mean you're going to become fluent, but of course, it is going to help your Spanish. And like I said, it will be a great motivator. And like I said, you get to meet a bunch of new friends, which is always a bonus. Entonces, si tú tomaste clases de español en la preparatoria o universidad, ahora quiero que tú te unas a una comunidad de estudiantes de español. Quiero que hables mucho español, que escuches el idioma todo el tiempo, que veas películas o series en español, que leas libros en español y que viajes para que veas lo útil que es saber español. Muchas gracias por ver el video. If you want to become conversationally fluent in Spanish as fast as possible, check out the Fluent Spanish Speaker Academy. Here's what some of our current members have to say. Caden, an NYU graduate, says, "You won't find a more committed teacher than Nate. His lessons provide students with a comprehensive set of vocabulary and skills to use long after you've completed the course. We stand behind our program with a 30-day full refund policy. If you're not happy within 30 days, we'll give you your money back, no questions asked." To find out if the Academy is right for you, click the link on the screen or in the description below.